Yo, it's Jasmine.
Hey y'all, it's
Hey, it's Shay, and welcome to New Age Mamas.
Welcome back, ladies.
Hi.
We
Hello.
have a special guest on. We have Dr. Sarah. Do you like saying Dr. Sarah? Do you just want Sarah? Like, what do you like to go by?
You can call me Sarah, please.
Sarah, okay. But sometimes you gotta put the doctor on it. Like, it's
I
just
feel like you gotta put the doctor on
You
there
It
too.
was
earned
a
it.
lot of school.
Definitely
Yeah,
put
little
doctor.
sprinkle,
You earned
sprinkle.
it.
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you.
But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me so we can have a candid conversation about kids and sleep and ultimately like parenting because it's really all tied together.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited because I definitely had some personal questions and I was just in a parent meeting. So I was like, oh, like this is going to be perfect because I definitely had some personal questions, like just from everyday interactions with my child.
Right, and 3-year-olds too, because I know you all have 3-year-olds. We just talked about that.
Yes.
And I work with kids from like the newborn stage all the way up to like 3.5, 4, and it's like a different little being now. 3, right? So there's lots of things, lots of obstacles and challenges that can happen with sleep and outside of the bedroom as well. So yeah, I'd love to answer any questions that you have as we get going.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and introduce you to our guests.
I'm excited.
Do I do that?
Oh, no.
Oh
Shay.
no.
Oh, no.
Shay.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
No,
I'm
she
so
pulling it
sorry.
up.
My sound was messing up for a second.
Okay.
I'm like, huh? Okay. But yeah, so let me introduce Dr. Sarah because we're gonna put a little sprinkle on there.
Right.
Dr. Sarah is a sleep and parenting consultant who found her passion empowering parents to teach their little ones to sleep and parent confidently day and night. Chiropractor by training, she's a sought after sleep consultant in Silicon Valley, where she works with tech execs, celebrities, and parents from all walks of life. She's partnered with brands including Nanit, I hope I'm saying that right,
Mhm.
uh, Wulino, and Naturepedic, and has spoken at corporations including Google and Impossible Foods. She is the author of the Amazon best-selling book, The Helping Babies Sleep Method, The Art and Science of Teaching Your Baby to Sleep, and a proud member of the Society of Behavioral Sleep Medicine. Since 2013, she's helped thousands of parents be loving, attached, and well rested.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's an amazing intro.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've been doing this for almost 10 years. So,
Wow.
partly in Canada, because I'm from Canada originally, which is a different experience, right? Because Canadians have like a year-long maternity leave. And then I moved down here like 9 years ago, and it's a completely different experience. Americans ask so much of women and moms down here. It's really interesting.
Do you feel like that inspired that journey, like that move?
No, I was inspired because like being a chiropractor by training, I was like very confident going into parenting that I would just be able to nail it. Like I was totally overconfident. And then it was such a humbling experience, right?
It
And
is.
and I think those are the right words that I think I see you guys nodding your heads. Like most of us can agree. It's like, wow, no one can really prepare you for the experience. And it is very humbling. And basically,
Yeah.
I just couldn't get him to sleep. I was super tired. And so I went down this rabbit hole of like researching everything about baby sleep and realizing it's really a learned behavior. Who knew? Right. And then I had to do
Oh.
like undo the habits that I had inadvertently taught him in those
Hmm.
first few months so that we could get longer stretches of sleep, that I didn't have to rock him or nurse him or stick the pacifier back in. And then I started a blog in 2013, the Helping Babies Sleep blog. And it was just I got into it, was just so passionate about it because I was so tired and I wanted just like, to me, there's like so many different ways to raise your kiddos, right? But sleep is something that seems to be something that comes up for most people. And I just always wanted people to know what is possible because I remember being at a stroller size meeting because we all have a year off in Canada. So there's lots of
Mhm.
community, there's lots of other women around, and sharing that my 7-month old, was sleeping great. We had like one night feed, he was doing 11 hours. And this lady going, I didn't even know that was possible.
Right?
And that's the thing that I just like resonated with me. Like, I think we're all doing the best we can. There's lots of different ways. We have different expectations, different thresholds, different health levels. Whatever you do, that's good with me. But if you have questions, I just want you to know it's possible. So that's how I got into it. I was tired.
So how did you I guess you kind of like said this already, but I guess tell us about like that start into more so like working with parents and other parents.
So I started blogging just about our experience. So I had my second, and I remember thinking, I'm going to remember everything with this one, and I'm going to do it differently. I don't want to get to that spot. And so I started working on really gentle newborn shaping, a term I kind of coined after the fact, because we think about sleep training, we think about very harsh, leaving them to cry. And there's so many, anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But at the beginning, in the newborn stage, she was like 5-6 weeks. She's gaining weight well. We have breastfeeding well established. I'm like, okay, let's start working on really gentle shaping. I'm still involved in assisting her to fall asleep, but I'm projecting out what her needs are rather than with my son. I was always trying to like, oh, I think it's sleeping time. Oh, I think that's a feeding sign, trying to read the cues in the moment. And it was so disempowering and stressful. And you're kind of always in fight or flight when you're in that mode. And so with her, I was like, okay, I know what her needs are. Let's project out to what your daily needs are. And as a second time parent, you're often that much more confident in what they can do. You believe in their capabilities that much more. So I started doing that, and then the blog, and then I started helping friends, and it just kind of grew from there. And it's just grown.
Wow. I really love that, because you were just really researching just so you can get better sleep. And you're like, wow, this is actually going to help a lot more people than I thought, because we're all dealing with this issue. Because I know when my baby was a newborn, his dad really took the night shifts, and we didn't get any sleep with all those feedings. And so when do you think is the proper time? Because I know you said gently got in there. So like, when is the time to really, okay, let's start this sleeping pattern thing?
Okay. Yeah, great question. The first month of life is about feeding. Get your feeding established, get your baby gaining weight well, and then you can absolutely start working on like these gentle things. They're all listed in the book, The Helping Baby Sleep Method, but basically in the newborn stage, it's really understanding sleep's a learned habit. So the way I'm getting my child to sleep, just be thinking, is this sustainable? Because this is what I'm teaching them for the next coming months, right? It is true that you cannot spoil a baby, agreed 100%, but you can kind of start laying down habits that early. The second one is really like timing, understanding the timing of feeding and sleeping. So, that's just a skill that you'll learn. Intentional feeding. So this is where I went wrong the first time, is like, I just used the boob to mute all the tears. Like I just kept feeding him because they made me so uncomfortable. Right. And he was 20 pounds by the time he was 4 months of age because of that. And so intentional feeding is the idea. Am I bringing my child to the breast or the bottle to fuel them, or am I doing it to soothe? There's nothing wrong if you're doing it to soothe, but is that what you're doing every time? Right? Because think about habits. How do you get into a habit? It's repetition. Okay. The fourth pillar is assisting, because yes, they're still too little. They cannot self-soothe, but you can help them do something, fall asleep in a way that's sustainable long-term. And then the fifth one is troubleshooting. So if these things aren't working, and they should be, because I have the methodology down, what else could be going on here? Right. So then we're thinking about like reflux. We're thinking about GI issues. We're thinking about, is my timing off today? Did I eat something different if I'm a breastfeeding parent? What else could be going on? So to answer your question, see, I'm a little bit long-winded, but the answer is like, as when your first month is closing, you can gently be starting to work on things. Now, when do you work on independent sleep? That's a different question. Okay. Because independent sleep is like the ability, they're completely awake, the ability you can put them down and they like suck their thumb or rub their hair or do something repetitive to self-soothe. And that is 4 months and later. And that's because you have to wait for that startle reflex to disappear. You want to wait for them to hit that 4-month sleep regression, which often starts as early as 3.5 months. And you're just waiting for their hand control to get better, because they need those to be able to self-soothe.
And that makes sense.
That's crazy.
Right. I know. Go ahead, Diamond.
Because I had a question too as well. So me personally, the way I was taught, because of course you're a new mom, so a lot of people have, advice and opinions for you. So one of the biggest advice I heard was rule number 1 is sleep when baby is sleeping. So it's like I tried that method, but however, when baby is sleeping, you trying to tackle 10 things at once as
Mhm.
far as cleaning, or this your time to shower, or this your time to eat. So it's like, did you believe in that method? Do you think that's a good method? Sleep when baby is sleeping? Like, even though like you're tired, but you're probably
Mhm.
not like sleepy, which is a difference.
Right. Oh, such a good point. You're right. So funny, right? Everyone has advice for you because here's why. It was the most magical journey. It was the most meaningful, purposeful thing they ever did in their life, and they want to share that with you. Right? So it all comes from such good intentions. And I think everyone will have different replies to this. Should you sleep when the baby's sleeping? Um, there's a lot of naps going on in there. So if you're trying to sleep during all those naps, that's probably going to mess up your night's sleep a little bit, even though, they are still waking up in the night. I personally, what worked for me was like, okay, baby woke up after like 6:30. That's waking up for the day at some point. Maybe that was 7, maybe it was 7:30, but anything after 6:30, I'm not going to try getting them back to sleep because it's going to be a real challenge. I'm going to get up. And then that first nap, I'm going to shower. And that second nap, I might prepare my dinner or eat. And then that third nap, I might try and lie down with them at that point. Like trying to have an
Mm.
afternoon nap, I think is pretty wise. But I also think the funny part of this, about any stuff about baby sleep is what age are we talking about? Because there is such a huge difference between like a 2-month-old and a 6-month-old, right? So what age? Yeah. Hope that
That
helps.
is true.
So I have a question. I guess
Yeah.
so let's say, when does a parent like reach out for help? Once
Yeah.
like, when do they get to a place where they're like, okay, I can't do this
Yeah.
alone. I need
Yeah.
some guidance.
I think people have wildly different thresholds. And I think they have a lot of different support systems. So in the newborn stage, I work with a lot of parents who are like 6, 7, 8 weeks in and thought it was going to get
Okay.
easier, but they're still finding that their baby will only sleep in their arms. And they're like, I got to go back to work in 4 weeks. I think we need to do something. Right.
Yeah.
So that's one kind of client that I work with. And then the other kind of client can be anywhere from 4 months up to 3.5 years. And it's when they feel like the way they're doing something is no longer sustainable for whatever reason. And it can be different things. It could be that the baby was co-sleeping and rolled off the bed and that scared them. Or it can be that they had a huge fight with their partner about lack of sleep and the way the baby's sleeping. And so they're like, we got to do something. So it really does vary quite a bit. It's really personal, when the way you feel like it's just not working for you anymore. You just can't. Yeah. You just can't.
But I love that example because I mean, I didn't think about that. Like, people preparing, going back to work, like needing that help because
Yeah.
time is
And
ticking away.
and I think part of that is that the dialogue is changing. I think for decades it's been like, you can't do any kind of sleep work until they're 6 months. And then that crept up to like 4 months. And now the reason I even when I started, I didn't touch newborns as much. But now I feel like I have a greater skill set with the feeding and just like such a greater understanding of it after doing more research and whatnot, that I feel comfortable talking about newborn sleep shaping. And I also think having a medical background, like I know what to watch for too, like when something doesn't fit. But if you take the average sleep consultant, because we are not a regulated profession, so there's not a standardized training. If you take an average sleep consultant who maybe was like, I don't know, an office manager or something, and have her trying to coach a newborn, like, yeah, she might not have that same background to feel confident working on. So does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's crazy. When I first heard about a sleep consultant was probably about a year ago. I was leaving a yoga class and the yoga instructor just had a baby and she was saying like, yeah, I work with a sleep consultant. And I was like, what's that? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know this was a thing, which I wish I did because I felt it would have been really helpful in those times of me transitioning because we were just really kind of going off TikTok and Google and just trying to see. So like, how do you, when people usually contact you, are they usually finding you after reading your book or are they just doing a Google search? Like, how does somebody find a Google consultant or even pay for one?
Yeah, all of those things. So I get people coming from the book. I've been blogging for 10 years, so a lot of the blogs come up, or they're like intentional sleep consultant near me, and then Yelp pops up and I pop up in through there. Yeah. Variety of ways. Yeah.
And what like form of payment, like is it through insurance or do they have to actually pay?
Yeah.
Like how does that work?
So sleep consultants, so we're not a governed body. So like your dentist, your doctor, they're a governed body. Like they pay dues every year and they have like ethics things they have to align to, but sleep consultants do not really have that. Okay. So we are not covered by insurance because of that as well.
Okay.
But a lot of my clients, I'm in Silicon Valley, so we have a lot of tech and big companies here, and they have employee benefits. And often my services can be reimbursable to them through some of their employee benefits.
Oh, that's good.
That's really cool. I think look, we're going to blast you all over because I think a lot of people need to hear about you and then also, like you said, the government needs to, because like doulas or midwives, a lot of these people are not covered by insurance or people don't know about them. And like you said, in Canada, they give moms way more time to adjust to their new lives. I feel like they give you all in Canada so much more. In other countries, like leeway. Here it's a rush. We got to get back to work. We got to get back to school, or they don't really give our time for us to really bond with our child. Not even moms, dads too. Sometimes I'm not sure how it is in other countries, but I know in sometimes dads only get 2 weeks off. If that.
Yep. Yeah. It's tough. It's fast. So that was one of the reasons I wrote the book, actually, was to like have this accessible to more people, right? So for like $15, you can be like, oh my God, I have a plan now. So my goal with the book was to bridge kind of like the academia and then the mom blog, right? The mom blogger who's sleep trained like one kiddo, but tells you how to do it. But like I've done a lot more than that. Let me tell you, over 1,000 at least. So that's the idea with the book. It's like, how do we merge the theory and then the implementation into kind of like a step-by-step approach? So that's what I tried to do in the book for people. Yeah.
So what are some of the most common sleep challenges you've seen so far that parents may face with babies or toddlers? Like, have you ever had like this one huge, patient that is just like, wow, this is a little tougher than I expected?
Yeah. Well, yeah, over 10 years, you definitely end up getting some tough case. But in general, what most people present is my baby has to be like, a typical case would be they have to be rocked or fed to sleep. And then they wake up multiple times in the night and I have to rock or feed them to sleep again. And then same thing for naps, right? So people think bedtime is fine, but they just wake up too much. But really, you don't have a night waking problem. You have a falling asleep problem. And that is that your child associates falling asleep with something external that they can't recreate on their own in the middle of the night. Because all humans, we all wake up in the middle of the night. They're just really fast arousals and we don't really remember them. However, if you were in a warm, cuddly embrace when you fell asleep and you wake up and now you're in the cold crib, you're like, no way, man, you're protesting, right? And you're calling out for that help. And so that is very, very standard. And have I had kids? So the amount of protest that kids will exhibit is related to 3 things, right? One is a parent's ability to set them up for the right timing. So if we keep kids up too late or too early, putting them down, it's going to be harder. Too early, they're frustrated, they're not quite ready. Too late, they're like overtired and more needy. So timing. Second one is repetition. So sometimes they wake up in the night, you feed them, and sometimes you let them cry or reinsert in a pacifier. You're not being consistent with how you respond, and how you respond helps shapes their expectations and their behavior. And so you end up not making progress, essentially. So if you're inconsistent, that will take longer and be more frustrating for your child. And then the third one is their temperament. So some kids are just more flexible to change than other kids. Okay. So I've definitely had some very intense kids, especially here in Silicon Valley. I've done a lot of reading about how giftedness is actually associated with having like intense emotions. And I think there's a lot of kids like that in this area. So, and then the other part too, is that as kids get older, neurodiversity. So being differently wired. So autism, ADHD, different things like that. Often one of the first symptoms is sleep disturbances. Yeah. So I've definitely had some challenging cases that I've, followed up with years later who've had, different diagnoses and that type of thing. But it's not like it was a complete failure. It's that they slept better, but it wasn't as good as we would like them to be. Right.
Right.
Because they have really busy brains and it's hard to relax.
So speaking of that, like I'm gonna take this personal. So like with my son, and I'm bring it to toddler. So he's about to be 3, and with bedtime, so he's now in his own bed, but we're in the same room. But when it's time to go to bed, I try to get him down by 8:30, but he fights me, and sometimes he'll stay up until like 10. He'll be in his bed, but he'll
Mhm.
either be talking or he'll be like, "Oh, I need a tissue," or I have to use the bathroom. Like he'll play that game, or
Yeah.
oh, I need this, I need that, and I'm just like, please go to sleep. Like what?
Yeah.
Why? Like what do
Why?
I
Okay.
do?
First question, is he still napping?
He naps at daycare, I think, one time.
Okay. So here's the thing. Most kids start to drop the nap between age 3 and 3.5. Okay. And the most common sign of being ready to drop that nap, you would think that it's not napping, but that's not it. It's actually not going to bed at night until like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Okay.
Okay.
So it's not you. It's that the nap, it like kills his sleep pressure. So one of our systems of sleep is like as we're metabolizing this ATP molecule for energy, we get a byproduct of protein. It builds up. It's our sleep pressure. All humans have this. Okay, so think about yourselves. Days you exercise, you're burning more fuel. You tend to sleep better or be ready for bed earlier. Okay,
That's me.
yeah, right. I know. After having a kid, I think we're all ready for bed earlier, but we stay up late anyway to get some alone time. So with him, with the nap, it could be that like at age 3, I have just tracked kids for so many years. I find they need almost like 6 hours, maybe 6.5 after the nap to be ready to sleep. So if he's waking up at like 3, he might not be ready
Which
to
he
sleep.
is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 3 plus 6, 9, 9:30.
Wow.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are on it. Okay, so do I tell the daycare, like, let's cut the nap? Like, what's
Yep.
going on?
Mhm.
Okay.
Cut the nap. Or they could, so is
am-
it just an hour?
I think it's an hour, yes. I think it's
Okay.
from 2 to 3.
Okay. So there's a couple things you could do. One is, can they move it earlier?
Okay.
So that he's up earlier and then he'll be ready to sleep earlier, right? Or you can even start it on a weekend of not napping him and just be prepared though. Now he's going to have to go to bed like way earlier, like 6:30. It's crazy. He needs 12 hours of nighttime sleep, maybe even 13 when you drop the nap the first like week, 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to be a situation, because right now we're doing potty training right now. So that's going to be a situation.
Yeah, so pick your battles, right? I wouldn't do them both maybe at the same time. Yeah. But just like relieve the expectation. So for him, from his perspective, you're putting him down at, I forget what you said, like 8:30. And he's like, I am not ready. Let's like, Mom, give me the stall, give me this. Like he's not ready. Right. So it would ease your frustration and likely his too if you gave him a bit more time, and then he'll be more ready to sleep when you come in and do your rituals. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, until I'm ready, I need to shift his shift his bedtime back. And so with him waking up later, because I try to get him to school at 8:30. So and I usually try to wake him up at 7:30. So is that like from 9:30 to set, is that too short of a sleep?
So great question. So 9:30 to 7:30, that's 10 hours.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Plus
it is.
he's getting the hour at school, which is 11. Okay. So if you think about it, if I'm going to drop that nap, I need to get at least 11 hours of nighttime sleep. But what I find is when you drop that nap, most kids do more than that. They do like 12. Okay.
Because
So
they're exhausted.
Because they're pooped. Yes. Yeah. So if he's waking up at 7:30, then we'd have him asleep by 7:30. Asleep by 7:30. 12 hours.
And I should do the same night routine every night.
Yes, you want the same sequence of events, and there's a few reasons. Like we all have ours, even as adults. It's cueing your brain that like sleep time is coming, and it should be like fairly relaxing and winding down. It's really about relaxation, right? Your body and your brain. And routines are just helpful for kids because it just helps them prepare and know what to expect, and that's what they want. It's very comforting. You feel safe and secure that's what routines are. They provide safety and security for kids.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't
You're
know if y'all got any
welcome.
personal sleep questions, but that was mine.
I'm open. Let me know if you have any.
Taking notes. Taking notes.
Yeah. And I have a question too. Shay, you want to go first, or
No, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, so of course I have a 3-year-old too as well. However, he is still sleeping in our bed, and it's not because of him, it's because of me. And I just refuse to sleep without my baby. I don't know, like for 3 years. Like he's been sleeping with me. Like he has his own room, his own bed. It's to his comfort, to his liking. But like he would like if he was to take a nap on the weekend in his bed, I would and if I'm finna take a nap, I would go get him and we gonna sleep together. Like I'm trying to break up the co-sleeping. However, I just don't know how to myself. And I
But
find myself
why?
not being
Diamond,
able to.
why? You love it.
Why?
Why would you do that? So this is where you start. Why do I want to change behavior? Why?
I love that answer.
I want to change it because it's he's too old for it now at this point. Like, and plus, like me and his dad is still together. We can like the way he sleeps. First off, he's a rough sleeper, so that should be number one. Like he sleeps with our head, of course, is against the headboard, but his feet is against the headboard, which means his feet is on my face.
Yeah.
Or he's tossing and turning. He wakes up in the middle of the night and he'll grab his own cup or get his own drink. He'll get up and go use the bathroom by himself in the middle of the night. Come back.
Oh.
So him climbing over you, it's a
Yeah.
lot. So that is the reason why I can't personally. I don't know. I'm trying
Okay.
to stem from it, but I don't know.
Okay. So awesome. So you said you expressed two things, right? I love it. Natural, instinctual, normal. But then you said, I'm tired. Like I'm getting woken up a lot in the night. Okay. Also important because you're an important person too. And we often forget that, right?
Mm.
So you can absolutely change habits. Here's what I would do. He's not used to being alone in his room at nighttime. So you two are going to move into his room. And maybe he sleeps in his bed and you sleep on the floor for like a week and get him used to that space. And that waking up in the night and he still feels safe and secure that you're there. And then maybe you slowly move away over a few nights. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Is that
I'm gonna
helpful?
test it out.
Are
I'm
you
gonna
gonna
have
do it?
I'm gonna have to buy an air mattress. The floor is a little hard.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you might get like a camping mattress or something, but
Yeah.
like just somewhere to start, right? Like
Well,
he's
he'll be
not
like,
he's yeah.
when it's
What
time
will
to
he
go
be
to bed,
like?
when it's time to go to bed, he'll be like, Mama,
Yeah.
can I lay with you? It's time to lay
Yeah.
with you. So he like knows, like, yes, you can lay with me.
Well, here's the other thing, Diamond, to keep in mind, right? Like you in a way might be like his pacifier or his soother. You are the thing that he associates with falling asleep. So he actually might toss and turn and have a really hard time if you're not there. So you are actually weaning him. Like doing this is kind of like doing a bit of sleep teaching or sleep training, if you will, because you're changing the way he falls asleep and that comfort. So you might consider like some sort of a transitional object to like a very soft bunny that you can rub on his face and start doing that now so he can associate that with the sleeping process. So then when you move into like his own room and you're a few feet away from him, he has the bunny, or you can lean over and put the bunny on his face and soothe him. So doing it really gradually.
Okay.
Yeah. Makes sense? Yeah.
Yes. But that's soothing him. What about me? Like,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that too. 'Cause I
Okay,
was
tell me
like,
more.
how do you handle the parents who are like, and I wouldn't say like Diamond, but like maybe are going against their own interests?
Well, here's the thing. There's a reason there's a fee. Because when you put money down, you're accountable. It shows that you are motivated and you want to do it. And so I've noticed over time, like I've had online classes, I've had smaller packages when I first started out. The best clients are the higher priced clients because they're committed. They're put
serious.
the money down.
Yep.
They've thought through why they want to do this, right? And they're ready to take action and be coached because it really is coaching. So the first thing, Shay, you noticed when Diamond was expressing this, I was like, well, why do you want to do that? Because if you're not tied into the why, if you don't feel like you need to do this for a greater good, it'll be very difficult to implement these, especially with babies and crying, right?
Yeah.
Wow, you just dropped a gem for everything in life, though, because usually, when you start, especially when you start paying a higher dollar price for something, you're like, oh, no, I'm serious because I spent my money on this. And usually, sometimes like with the gym, people will pay the $20 and they don't even care. They won't go paying the $20 or Netflix or whatever. But then once they start paying $100, $500, no. Let me change some things. Yeah. So.
And this is reason people work with a consultant. It's someone to be accountable. Same with the fitness. I actually use fitness often as an analogy, right? someone to be accountable to, someone who's done this many more times than you, has the expertise to get you to your end goal as quickly and as easily as possible. All right. And it's coaching. I hate sleep training because it's sleep trainer. It's like sounds very rigid and dictative. It's really coaching. Like, what are your parenting goals? Does that include sleep? What do you want that to look like? What's holding you back from getting there? And then let's talk about what that might look like. And then you have to call me and tell me how it went. Actually,
oh, we're gonna keep you updated. That means Diamond, you're accountable.
I don't think Diamond's decided yet. She's still on the fence, but she'll know when she's ready.
I'll eventually get to that point. Hopefully, I'll get there.
Yeah, it's gonna be by the time. So my son's 12, and we used to have like sleepovers where he was allowed to go sleep with me, and it would go on until probably like age 9, 10 is when they're finally like, nah, don't want any.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay.
Yeah,
but I love the idea of sleepovers.
So the idea is when you can reason with them. So I didn't do it until they were like 3. Right. And they've been sleeping independently until then because they're much more reasonable. Like a 2-year-old doesn't understand that it can't be every night. They want what they want. They're impulsive and they're going to have a little tantrum. And it's just not worth my time to introduce that. But at age 3, we can have some nice times together. We can make it a special night. And Diamond said it, right? It's like sleeping with an octopus. They kick, they're all over the place. Like, it's not a good night, restful night's sleep for you. So it's like, it's just a special thing.
So speaking of the co-sleeping, what was my question? So like, do you find, like, as a sleep coach, do you find it's easier like to really get people to understand, so like, let's get the baby out the bed? Or do you kind of work with wherever you are? Like, you'll just be like, okay, if this is what you want to do, we'll go with it. Or do you say like, let's get the baby out the bed, especially with SIDS or other
Well, I was just inform them of the risks of SIDS or co-sleeping or whatever it is, but I want to meet people where they're at. So I always ask them, what are your goals? And then they'll tell me and I'll say if that's achievable or not, right? So like if you want to have, like everyone has different things, but like if you want to have a 5-month-old, let's say, sleep beside you through the night without any kind of eating and they're breastfed, I'm like, that's going to be hard to achieve. Right? Because you're so close. They can smell you. Usually 5-month-old exclusive breastfed kids still eat once. So it's like, I'm probably not going to be able to help you with that, but I can get you to this point. So when I had definitely had people that we continue to co-sleep, but they want to stop the nursing to sleep. And we can like, that's achievable. I had somebody today that talked to me. They have a 15-month-old who they lost the pacifier and she's just not sleeping. And now they're walking her at night because they essentially, without knowing it, when they lose that pacifier, they launched her into sleep teaching. They took away the known way of falling asleep, and now she's trying to figure out how to do it on her own, and she can't. She's tired. Now you're falling into this negative feedback loop of being overtired. So the parent is walking her multiple times in the night. And my question was, well, do you want to keep co-sleeping? And they said yes. And I said, okay, this could be a challenge. I'm not going to lie, because you're 15 months. You have to make sure that child's safe in the bed. So you're going to be constantly on guard. We can try it, but I can't guarantee success at co-sleeping with a 15-month-old like that, right? Versus like a 2.5-year-old co-sleeping, nursing to sleep. Okay, that's probably going to be a little bit easier because you can talk to them and reason with them a little bit more. So it depends. So I try to meet them where they're at.
You're setting realistic goals. Like, you're being real with people and letting them know if this is what you want, this behavior is counteracting that. And just giving them the choice on how they want to move forward. And I'm pretty sure once people realize, like, well, this is what I want, that step.
Yes. But then you have people who might not be on the same page about, we might as well talk about it, tears, right? Tears. So, I think this is one of your questions. I'm stealing it.
I know you're
like,
good. Okay. Going into it. Go ahead. This is how we do it. Let's go into it.
All right. So, cry it out. Oh, I don't want to do cry it out. Okay, great. What does that mean to you? Because on the social media, like, people have wildly different definitions of what cry it out is. In fact, they have wildly different definitions of what sleep training is. You remember I told you those 5 pillars earlier, like the 5th pillar, there's all these things like understanding is learned habit, feeding, timing, being able to consistent. And then number 5 is the responding, the tears. So if I take away the known way of falling asleep to my child, how am I going to respond to offer comfort to those tears of frustration They're definitely going to be frustration. They're tired. I just changed the game on them. They are frustrated. How am I going to respond to that? To help them through this. Just like you, if I said to you tonight, you can't sleep in your favorite position, I'm going to take away your pillow. Or Diamond, if I took away your son, I bet you wouldn't sleep very well that night because you're so used to him being there, right? It's a change.
Yeah.
But you would toss and turn and you would learn a new way of falling asleep. And that's what these kids, you know, for parents who feel like it's unsustainable, that's what they have to go through. So cry it out to me is tears, but cry it out to some people means to close the door and leave the room. Right? Sorry, I shouldn't say cry it out to me as tears. Cry it out to me means to close the door and not go back in. And I don't like that because for most people, it's too much of a change. Safety and security comes from communication and being consistent. And that's like one very big change with little communication. And it's some people do it and it works for them. It's just not where I would go.
Okay.
So, but that being said, there's going to be frustration when I change this. So like if I have a 5-month-old or 6-month-old or 7-month-old who's been like nursed to sleep every night, the first night I don't nurse them, even if I rock them, they will probably be crying. And I'm going to keep rocking them because I'm like, I can't do the nursing anymore. Like I can't be the only one that can put this baby to sleep. So technically that would be cried out for some people because there's tears, right? But I've definitely had kids that don't cry. It's not necessarily because anything I did. It's because of their temperament. They are more flexible to change than other kids. But most kids will express some sort of frustration. And then it's like, how do we respond to that? So in my one-to-one work, we decide like, here's what we could try first. Here's your options. You can be in the room right next to them offering physical and verbal reassurance, or you can be sitting, you know, further back in the room, or you can be out of the room. Like what feels best to you? Okay, let's try that. Let's see how your child responds. And then I just know what like success looks like, if it's going to work or not. And I'll be like, great, this is going well. Let's continue. Or you know what? Like it took you like 45 minutes to get him down last night. You sitting there patting didn't seem to help. Like, did you feel like it was helpful? I'll be like, no. I'm like, okay, then let's get you out of there because you can be more of a distraction than help.
And are you helping people on FaceTime? Are you going to homes? How are...
Yeah, so I do a lot of virtual where like we set up a plan and then I use Google Sheets where they're like logging what's happening and I'm hopping online a few times a day, but I'm not necessarily messaging them during for the virtual ones. And then the home visits, so I'll go over at bedtime and help them through the first time that they haven't fed their baby to sleep or rocked their baby to sleep. Sometimes I'll stay the whole night depending on how much stuff they have going on. But a lot of it's virtual. Yeah.
Nice.
Can I ask, just out of curiosity, what's the longest time you felt like you spent with a client?
Oh, like in terms of weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, so on average, most people have hit their goals in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fast.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah, 2 weeks. It depends how quickly or slowly you want to do it. So sometimes with the toddlers, like someone like Diamond, because I can hear her, like she likes it, that would be like 3 weeks, maybe 4 at the very most, because it would be slow, right? We would get him on his own for a few nights and we make a change for another few nights. And so that's very, very average.
Do you believe like children can have separation anxiety with their parents? Or is it mostly like parents having separation anxiety with their kids?
So the developmental books would say at 4 months, you have that sleep regression and it's related to object permanence. Object permanence means your child understands that you exist even when they can't see you. And that's what that 4 months sleep regression is about. They wake up more. They're like, oh, is she there? I think she's there. I think if I call, she'll come. Right. And so you help them with that. 9 months, they say, is separation anxiety. And I actually don't like that term because at 9 months, it's really the idea of like, you are their preferred person and they just want to be with you. It's actually a positive thing. And they're allowed to tell you, oh, I really hate it when you leave. Okay. Isn't it interesting how the wording we use affects how we feel about it? Okay. So then at 3, I mean, your little guy, I don't know what he's like in the daytime, but would he want you to sleep at night and cry if you left him? Yes, because he has no experience with that. It's new. Is that separation anxiety? Sure. Yeah. But can he overcome it? Absolutely. You just need to expose it to him more gradually. Right? I remember I had a family come to me. I'm trying to remember the exact age. 15 months, I think. And this little guy needed to fall asleep on people and then be rocked in the middle of the night to go back to sleep. And they said they tried sleep training on their own and he cried for like 2.5 hours. And I was like,
no.
That's a really long time. Okay, let's go back. Let's start back. Then my first question was, tell me about his playtime in the daytime. Is this child used to being alone in a room? No. Someone's always like right beside him. Often when you have houses with nannies too, right? It's their job to take care. So they have like a personal companion all day long right beside them. So it's like, okay, so we have a little boy who's never been alone in a room by himself. And you just plunked him in the crib from awake and left. He has never experienced that alone in his life before. That's not going to work. Right? He's tired. It's bedtime. He's frustrated. And is that separation anxiety? Sure. But does it mean that you can't get him to sleep alone in his room at some point? Doesn't mean that. No, it just means you have to come at it more from a different way. So we start with having playtime where parents are popping in and out. I'm just going to the kitchen to grab a cup. I'll be right back. Right? So he learns that people always come back and he gets used to his own company.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's really good because I had my friend, she has a 6-month-old, and they were just saying her and her husband, they went out of town for a day and they left her with the grandparents, and the baby cried the entire time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
she's like, she's frustrated because she's like, I'm with you all day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So she was like, she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. I feel for her, right? Because she's with the baby all day long. Please let her have a little break. So it would be like, can the grandparents come over? Are they over there with mom, like in the daytime? Have they ever done that before?
I don't think so. I don't think they have.
So that's where you start, right? Introduce something new when you still have that safe person around. And then in that time together, mom's leaving the room, popping back in, the grandparents are staying there. That's where you start with that.
And if they cry a little bit, still just let them
reassure. Yeah, exactly.
That's so smart.
But I didn't answer the rest of Diamond's question. Was like, do parents have? Sorry, it was me. Do parents have? You asked me if parents get separation anxiety.
Oh right? Yes.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think I do. I think I did. Like at the beginning, I was just because, like Shay mentioned, we had our babies during COVID. So having a baby during COVID was, I don't have anything else to compare it with because I didn't have a baby. But it was different. So from the stories we were told, like 5 or 6 or up to at least more than one person at least can be in the room with you while you're delivering. So parents are in there, the grandparents at least, but with COVID, some of us had like one person or couldn't have nobody at all in the room. So it was like all that I knew at one point was just, of course, me and my baby. So coming home, at this point when I had my baby, I was staying with my parents. So coming home to that, everyone would be gone during the day. They all at work. They're basically at work. My younger siblings were at school, so it's just me and the baby at home all day. So it's like when it came time to separate from my baby, I'm like, no, because I didn't get into a habit, and it had me like fall off like or be like have issues with other family members because people did like, oh, let me keep him for you for a little bit so you can get a break. No, like it was just no on my end because I was just so attached to him. And then the crazy part is, Sarah, this the crazy part. I wasn't even a breastfeeding mom, so I didn't have a real excuse. Like I'm not nursing; he's taking formula, so that I think me. And then when I did separate from him, I would find myself battling in my head mentally. Like I started going through postpartum depression. I started worrying, was I doing parenting right? Am I a good mother? Am I doing this right? Because I let him cry while I'm taking a shower. Like it was just little things that would add up until honestly once I started seeking therapy, that's when it really started helping. But at first it was a lot, and I felt like I always had like I was scared with separation anxiety. When he first went to daycare, I'm calling daycare 10 times a day because I need update. Like what's going on? What is he doing? What is he eating? What is he playing with? Like I just was that mom. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think we grant you some grace here because you had a COVID baby. Like it was a completely abnormal time, right? And everything you described just kind of fits in with anxiety in general, right?
Yeah.
So feeling of uncertainty. And so we try and like in general, having had postpartum anxiety myself, I can say that we try and control things. And so the thought of someone else coming in and taking care of him for you, not helpful. Because then you have to give up control. And that's
Yeah.
a very, very scary thing that's helping you keep it together right now. So kudos to you for getting help and seeing a therapist and like taking some deep breaths and working through it all. And I don't think that your experience is uncommon. I think a lot of people feel that way. And I think the other thing too that happens to a lot of people I see is that they have maybe less than helpful partners who are kind of like, well, there's two parts to it. One is society trains us that it's the women's job, even though the men are like wonderful, like this like subconscious messages that it's the women's primary job. And two, like we are the ones usually home the first little while. Like it does all fall on us. We do become the ones that are Googling and searching everything out, right? And so we may have partners that are disengaged. And that puts us into like fight or flight mode even more, where we're responsible for this, keep this little human being alive. And we don't feel like we can necessarily rely on them. Or maybe we gave them a task once and they failed, right? They didn't do it the way we wanted to do it.
Like
they missed the feeding cue. Yeah,
Yeah.
right? And that reinforces that sense of I have to do all of this and I have to control all of this, which ultimately leads to burnout. So it's amazing that you got some help with that already. But I think that's a very common feeling. Okay.
Now, I have a question.
Sure.
What advice would you give to parents who may be like, because I know you're consulting, but I know there may be parents who come to you who feel discouraged or they feel like they're doing something wrong, or like, they just, it's something that they're doing isn't right. How do you like kind of affirm them and help them? Because you're only with them for a short amount of time, but you make a huge impact. So, I guess, how do you navigate that?
So I've taken lots of different coaching classes too, right? So that's what this is. It's like making a connection with this person, letting them be seen and heard because they're having a hard time and they're tired. So asking the right questions to kind of draw out where they're at. And I don't judge anybody because I think we are all just doing the very, very best that we can. And I think like I'll have people that'll be like, oh, I made a mistake. I held him for the first 3 months. And I was like, no, you didn't. You needed to do that at the time for whatever it was. Maybe he actually had reflux and you needed to do that. Or maybe you were still recovering and you needed to do that. It's fine. It is what it is. Everything is overcomable. It's like there's lots of different ways to parent. And it's okay if you change your mind on what that looks like. So there's no shame at all. We're all doing the best we can. And we continue to learn. Yeah.
You always pivot to the positive. Like you said.
Yes.
How interesting.
Spinning. You're like, all right. It may sound like when it comes out of your mouth as a parent, you may think like, this is something wrong. This is something that's holding me back. And then I talked to Dr. Sarah and she's like, oh, it's okay.
Right. I'm like, dang, you making it seem like, okay.
Interesting.
Like, let's be patient with ourselves.
I feel like, in full transparency, during this conversation, there were so many times where I thought you were going to be like, oh, no, that's wrong. But you were like, oh, okay, we go with it. And I love that. So I appreciate that you have that perspective.
Well, thank you. And, if I think I've worked really hard on that because I think I was really hard on myself. And I was so unhappy. I was so hard on myself. So one question to ask yourself when you have a negative thought come into your head like that, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I was like, would you ever talk to your friend like that?
Ooh.
If your friend came up to you and said, you would never go, yeah, you're right.
That's true.
That's so true.
What kind of friend would you be?
Right. So it's like we're getting very deep and philosophical here. I feel like we should have beverages, but the way to a happy life, right? The way to a happy life is how you talk to yourself. That's the big secret.
I like that. Shay, put a pin in it.
Right? We gotta clip that one up. You've been dropping a lot, so I know we're winding down to the end. So I'm gonna get in just about 2 more questions, or we all about to get in 2 more, or if they have some more. But I know So we don't have any premature babies and we don't have twins, but are there any special considerations that you do for twins or premature children or children with any medical complications?
Oh gosh. Yeah. And it's going to be too hard to list them all. It kind of depends on their situation, right? But basically it comes down to feeding and behavior. So, do we have feeding on track? That's the most important thing, because your child will continue to wake up in the night if you are low on milk supply, if you're not getting the food in, if they have a food allergy. So feeding, super important. Twins, I've done quite a few twins. They're so cute. Yes, they are cute. There's just little adjustments. It's not as hard. It's not as big of a change. I'm not going to say it's not hard, because it is. It's not as big of a change as you would think in sleep training twins. It would just be like we try and keep them on the same schedule. So we accommodate the more sensitive sleeper. So that might mean that we let the schedule follows the sensitive sleeper, and we might be waking the kind of the less sensitive person up from naps to keep it in alignment, basically. And then premature babies. So in general, I find they catch up somewhere around 6 months or so. But whenever I'm first starting with a family, we'll talk about what is their adjusted age versus their chronological and start there. So if they're 5 months, but they were 4 weeks early, we treat them like a 4-month-old. Yeah.
Got you. So, and then my last question, ladies, sure. I don't know if you got any other questions. So when do you have time for, just yourself, especially since you are a sleep consultant, then you have children, plus like, when do you have time for yourself and yourself and your family? Like, when do you get to have some me time? Because I'm pretty sure like you probably be at a basketball game and they coming up to you asking you questions. You just like, I'm just here.
Okay, so you will get better at setting boundaries as you get older, like you just will. You guys are still in the thick of it. Like my kids are 10 and 12. Okay, so your time still isn't your own where you're at right now, and it is hard. And it's super hard. But if you can put up some boundaries, like Saturday mornings from 9 to 11, I go to the gym or I go to my girlfriend's. All right, that's my time, and you just have to deal. That's a really amazing thing if you can do that every week. It's very hard to do for 2 reasons. One, you have to give up control because that baby's going to be doing something with the other parent that you might not agree with, right? You might have to fix it, quote unquote, when you come back home, right? But on the other hand, it gives that second parent who may not spend as much time with the child as you, it gives them that chance to practice. That as usually, there's one main parent that's the primary caregiver that had that exposure, especially at the beginning of life, that is kind of the preferred parent, kind of stays. You give that other parent that time, and you get to do something for yourself to fill up your cup. Resentment happens in marriages or with even kids when boundaries have been crossed. Okay, so when your boundaries that's when you start to feel resentful. And guess what? You're responsible for setting up the boundaries. So I would say my kids are old enough now. I can run errands and leave them at home. It's life-changing, right? They're old enough. Like they can call me on Messenger. It's great. So that's, that eases things up a lot. When my kids were younger, I would say I did not have as good of boundary setting. I think I had like 2 mornings a week that I knew I was meeting somebody else because that made me accountable to go for a walk or a run or something like that. And then I had, I played volleyball every Tuesday night. I had a babysitter come so I could play volleyball every Tuesday night. So like those setup things that are in your calendar, like make you go. Right. Yeah. And that's super important. So I hope that helps.
I'm happy to hear you say that because like that kind of mirrors the plan that me and my partner have already, where like I do Tuesdays and Wednesdays at the gym. He usually goes on Tuesdays, and he got a gym membership for our daughter as well. So she'll go with the
nice
2-hour limit. And so he'll go and he'll usually be meeting me. And then on Thursdays is his day where he'll go and I'll stay home. And he also goes on Sundays. He plays like basketball. So I'm glad to hear you say that because like when you have that balance and each parent gets that time, it does help.
Yes. And you don't lose yourself in parenting, right? And then you don't feel resentful that you're the only one that lost themselves in parenting.
Yeah.
Because I definitely think a lot of people do
at our summer body.
Yes. Right on.
Well, this has been great.
Um,
Y'all got any
I
more
guess
questions?
we have. I don't know if any of you guys. I was just gonna ask. I guess give us like a little like breakdown of your book, maybe, or just like a little shout out to your book.
Yes.
I wanna. We didn't really get too much of a chance to talk about it, but I would love to kind of like acknowledge it.
That's so nice of you. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Shay. You on
So
it.
it's the Helping Baby Sleep Method, the art
Yes.
and science of teaching your baby to sleep, because it is both. And this book is for 0 to 24 months in a crib. Co-sleepers, I don't talk about that directly, but you could take the theories and apply them, but it's not necessarily like laid out in there. And the front is why drowsy but awake is setting us up to fail, because, right? If you think about it, if you're making your child drowsy, you're doing the work of relaxing them. So when they wake up in the night, they're looking for that again. It's on Amazon. We're number 1 right now in the category of parenting
Woo!
infants. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's also on Audible, so if you want to listen and stroll at the same time, it's on there.
Ooh.
And the website is helpingbabiesleep.com, and the book's on there, and the consultations that I do, there's kind of an outline on there as well. And I have a blog, over 100 blog posts, and I also have a YouTube channel with like short clippets of things for people who are looking for some more information.
And I'll be tagging all of this in the description, so it'll be easy access for you all.
Awesome.
All I gotta do is click.
Right on, Jasmine. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's amazing. Number 1, how does that feel?
Oh gosh, it's the scariest thing, writing a book and putting your thoughts on paper out there to be like in the world forever and ever. And every time I get like a review, I'm like, oh good, they like it. You know, like it's very vulnerable feeling. So it's like validation, I guess, is the getting the category. So yeah.
And you deserve it.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
That is
I think
so
we're all
cool.
doing the best we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I'm so glad I can help you guys. It was really fun chatting with you.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh yeah, Diamond, the mom of the week.
Yeah, so before we end, Sarah, we just asked like every guest we have come on that they shout out a mom. We're gonna, make a post about it and shout it out on our social media and our platform. So we just would like for you to pick any mom you want in the world to shout out.
Oh, anyone in the world? Oh my gosh. I don't
It could
know.
be someone close to you, someone, whoever you decide.
Oh my gosh. Well, it wouldn't be one person. Right now, to me, it's all the Jewish moms out there.
Yes.
You know,
Okay.
I have Jewish friends who are really hurting right now, and I never really know what to say. And so it would be to them. Like I shared one thing on my stories because I want to not stay silent, but I don't know what to say all at the same time.
Right.
And somebody was like, messaged me like, do better, and like gave me this thing on. And I was like, I just want to tell the moms, like, anyway,
I understand.
I digress.
Yeah.
As moms, when we hear things going on where children is involved, it definitely gets emotional.
Yes.
So we definitely understand. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you. We appreciate that shout out.
Yeah.
Yes. And thank you for
Yeah.
recognizing that. Yeah, because there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. But we can definitely make that a shout out. So
That wasn't very helpful. I'm sorry for your
No,
social
it was
media.
great.
No, that
it
was
was great.
no, that worked.
Okay.
That was great.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up. So thank you guys again for tuning in, for listening to another episode. Please, please, please make sure you subscribe to our podcast. We really appreciate it. We thank everyone for tuning in and listening. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter at New Age Mamas. And that's a wrap. Thank you guys. And thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, for joining us.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.